All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Liz Obermeyer. I am the operations manager for DigitalCrafts. I run our Atlanta campus. Thank you for joining us today. We've got Rob Bunch, our instructor back there. He's going to be teaching everyone tonight. If you did not know, DigitalCrafts is a coding bootcamp. We have a 16-week full-time program and a 24-week part-time program, and we are located in Atlanta and Houston. If you have any other questions, after tonight, feel free to reach out to us at hello@digitalcrafts.com. We're going to be talking for about 60 minutes tonight, and if you have any questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat box, and I will relay them over to Rob. So I'll let you take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, so like Liz said, my name is Rob Bunch. You have to bear with me. I'm going to adjust a little bit here because we got kind of some glare off of the back window. One second. See if I can put that in there. Looks like maybe turn the light off in there. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm Rob. This is the first time I have done a streaming video, so you have to bear with me. I am, like she said, the chief instructor at DigitalCrafts. Made the original curriculum. This is now my 6th cohort, had about 90 students. If you're not familiar with how a code school works, it's about 4 months at a time, actually 16 weeks in our case. There are also some of the other programs that are a little bit different time frame. But the students come in with some with zero knowledge, some with a little bit of knowledge. And the goal is that at the end of the course, they'll have enough knowledge to be able to get a job as a junior developer. So I am used to working with individuals in the classroom, one-on-one, face-to-face, and so it's a little bit different over a webcam. But I'm looking forward to it. Just a quick bio about me. I graduated with a computer science degree in 2001. And if you're not familiar with that time, the dot-com bubble had just popped. And Y2K turned out to be a big hoax. So all the frenzy that was surrounding that turned out to, the job market is suddenly a big depression. I finished my degree and I decided to go to graduate school in Chicago, study something totally different for 3 years. I loved it. I got to the end of that in 2004. The market was starting to heal up and the internet was starting to grow again. The web was starting to grow again. So I got back into the development market, and it was an exciting time because this was sort of the golden age of both JavaScript as well as the web. You had around that period Microsoft, Mozilla, Yahoo, all the different employees who were part of the JavaScript era kind of just reconciled the differences and standardized ES5, which I think was in 2008. jQuery came out in 2006. Ajax started to become popular in 2007. So you had servers now that were able to serve up quality content to web programs. So that was really fun. Got to watch Angular, Ember, Meteor, Backbone, eventually React, and the other JavaScript frameworks pop up. Also get to be part of companies where we did Django and Flask sites in Python, watched Rails sort of rise, done PHP quite a bit. So I had my hands in a lot of pies, and as of about 2.5 years ago, ended up joining DigitalCrafts as an instructor. And in our class, which is 16 weeks, we spend the first 2 weeks going over Python because Python is a very good language as a first language. So if you're not familiar with programming or you don't have any experience, it's a really good place to start. And then we go into JavaScript for almost the rest of the course. It's front-end, JavaScript, and then eventually Node.js and Express, and then we finish up with React. And JavaScript is a terrible first language. Not because it's a bad language or because it's even necessarily difficult, but it's just totally different than every other language out there. Python is a fantastic language to learn up front because it is very easy to read for a non-coder, or it's at least as easy as coding is going to get for a non-coder. The structure, a lot of the vocabulary is as straightforward as things get. So we chose that as our sort of our teaching language for the first couple weeks, and this is one of the projects that we do in my class, is we build a text-based RPG game. So don't get too excited because we're not going to make anything that's going to take over Steam or suddenly going to show up on Twitch, depending on your imagination. But it will get you started with writing some Python, thinking about how game design works in a programming language. It will be very basic, but it will be good if you're new to Python. Please feel free to ask Liz any questions. She'll relay them to me. Won't be able to deal with everything. Again, bear with me because I don't know where you guys are all at. There's going to be some people that have no idea what a variable is. They don't even know if Python's installed on their computer. There are going to be people who have quite a bit of work already done with some serious Python modules, have done some data science with pandas, and this is old hat. So you're just going to have to kind of roll with it. If you've got questions, please ask them, and we will go ahead and get started. I wanted to show just a little bit about what we're going to do here. So the agenda. We're gonna start just going over an introduction to the project, kind of what the plan is. Two, for those of you who've never written Python before, a couple different options where you can do that at. You can use REPL, which is an online tool, and that's if you're on a Windows machine, that might be ideal. We'll get to that. Otherwise, how to write it and run it in your text editor. Three, how to actually run the script from the command line. So that assumes you're using a text editor. Should be pretty straightforward if you have any experience. Four, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the simple logic behind the game. And then five, actually go through the steps of making it, setting up variables, creating a game loop, printing off text, and so on. We have a couple stretch goals. There's even some more past this that just aren't shown on the screen. We may be able to add a shop. We may be able to give the hero a couple extra abilities. May I be able to add classes? It will just depend on what we have time for. If you've got ideas, you can sure shoot them to hello@digitalcrafts.com, and we can take a look. The project, we're going to make a game in Python that is entirely text-based. There are not going to be any fancy schmancy graphics. Imagination is required. You can, to each his own. Some people love text-based nodes and they don't want to play anything else. Some people are hardcore visual gamers, and hence the purpose of Twitch. Something like Unity might be more up your alley, but ours is just going to be text-based. There are a couple requirements that are simply non-negotiables. In order to run Python is a programming language, and you have to have it installed somewhere. You can use REPL, and REPL, I will hop over to REPL here real quick. If you go to repl.it/languages/Python, it will bring you to this screen here. It's a little bit small, but you can type code on the left. And if you have no idea what the next slide or two, as I go over that, how any of this works, you can come here to this URL, repl.it/languages/Python, and you can type all the code that we're going to do in here, click on the play button, and the execution of that code will be over here. If you have some Python experience, one, you probably won't need REPL. But two, you can also go, instead of going to /Python, you can go to /Python 3, and that will bring up just the Python 3.6, which there are some subtle differences. We'll talk a little bit about those. But I encourage you, I'm going to use Python 2 because that's what comes installed on all Macs. So this is an option for you to run it here. And just as a quick example, I'm going to do print hello world and run it. And over here, we do in fact get hello world. So this is a good place to run it if you have no experience and this is your first time. As another alternative, let me hop back over to our slides. You can use your own computer. And if you've got some experience, or if you're familiar with Linux, or you're good with machines, this is a good option. Python has to be installed on your computer, and we'll have to run the game from the command line depending on certain IDEs may or may not be able to do it. So the good news is if you have a Mac, it's already installed on your computer. If you're on a Windows computer, oops, sorry, I did not realize it was not following my screen there. If you're on a Windows computer, you're going to need to install it, and you can go to it's Python I think I can just click on the link here. Yeah, there we go. It's python.org/, grab the URL here. Python.org/download/release/python, and then you can pick the specific version. 2.7.13 is the most recent version. Alternatively, you can grab the 3.0 version, which is 3.6.3, and that is at this URL. And if you've already got if you've got a Mac, you already have it. You don't need to do this part. If you've got a Windows machine, you'll need to go through this part. And again, unfortunately, there are just too many variables. We won't be able to get through that process. For our purposes, I'm going to use Python 2.7 because it's on all Macs, and that's what I happen to be using. Okay, writing Python in your text editor. Now, I'm going to use Sublime, and I don't know what you've heard about text editors. Let me grab Sublime and bring it up here. Sublime is nothing more than a really, really fancy version of Notepad, let's say. It allows you to write text, content, stuff. You can put anything in there you want to. Whether it actually works or not is another matter, but you can put text in it. Text editors are really valuable for coders because they will give you coding-specific features, stuff like color coding. So if I come down here, I'm going to change the linter real quick to Python. And if I type in print, you can see that print turned red. So that's a win. It helps me know, oh, you typed something special in. Yellow means it's a string. If I type in hello world, that's English. I type in a semicolon at the end, which are optional in Python. It turns white. Come down a little bit and set up maybe a conditional. So we have if. And I'll say if true equals true. We could put it inside some parentheses and then have the semicolon. It will automatically indent for me. Sorry, I was writing JavaScript earlier today. If true equals true, this also turns purple because this is a very special word in Python. And like I said, if I hit enter after a colon, it will automatically indent for me. Python's as an indented language. So this is a big win for coders. Instead of coding in Notepad or instead of in VI or some archaic text editor, you get some really good help from things like Sublime. Other good ones are Coda, Atom, Visual Studio Online, or just Visual Studio on a machine. There's lots of positives. Make sure whatever you do that your linter is set to Python so that you can get the benefits of the linter to the max. Let me grab the slides again here. How to run your Python script from the command line. So there are a couple different ways to run it. You can run it inside the text editor itself. So if I go back over to Sublime and you have a build agent set up, let me shrink this screen down here briefly. And if I run it and type Command B, we're actually going to get an error because I don't have anything under here. I'll print true is true, and I'm going to run it again. In Sublime, it's Command B. Oops, sorry, actually, let's save there. There we go. If I click on Tools and then go to Build, or just type Command B on the Mac, I think it's Control B in Windows, it will run your code. And I have not saved this, so it looks like we've got a few problems. This is a popular and really straightforward, easy way to do it. You can also run it on a web server, so if you've got Apache or you've got Nginx or something like that, you can run it. You can also run it directly from the command line, so if you're familiar with that, by all means, you can fire it up that way. We'll switch over to my terminal window in a little bit, and you can see how that works as well. Hop back over to the right window here. 1 sec. So just had a question about, let me clean up my terminal window here. One of the question came in, why are the semicolons used at the end of the lines? Let me switch back over to Sublime for a second. In Python, as well as in most languages that have their roots in C or C++, the program does not a lot of times care if you run into the end of a line. Now Python it does, which is why they're optional. So we can't do that. But in JavaScript you could do that. And you'll see minified files online. If you look around for jQuery and look for the minified version of jQuery, or if you look for the minified version of bootstrap.js, there are no spaces at all. And the only way the program knows that you've reached an end of a line is with a semicolon. In C++, in C, in PHP, lots of those languages, they're required. In Python and in Ruby, they are optional, and as well as in JavaScript, they're optional. But they're nice to have because it's really clear to me as a programmer, I've reached the end of the line. There are ways to be like a clever programmer, and those usually lead to lots of headaches because you want to be as clear and as obvious as possible when you're programming. Later on, when you come back to try and fix something later, you don't want to have to spend time to figure out how on earth or why on earth did I just do that. The semicolons at the end are a nice reminder to me that, oh, I've reached the end of the line, as opposed to a line dragging on or carrying out across maybe multiple lines. So it's a good question. Hop back over to the slides here quick. Oh, sorry. Skipped ahead a little bit there. There we go. So the command line is a tool that's built into the operating system. Specifically in Linux machines, which a Mac is. With Windows, you have Bash. So if you're familiar with how the Bash works, you can use the command line. Or you can open up just a DOS prompt. And those will allow you to interact more directly with your computer. If you're on a Mac, you can type command space and then type terminal. And it will open up the terminal window, which looks like this. Okay, it's pretty scary if you've never used it before. You don't need to because you've got REPL as an interim. If it's installed on a Mac, you can run Python-V. So I'll come back over to my terminal window here, and I will run Python-V, and it will, oops, sorry, wrong one. Python-V will kick back the version, and my Mac is running Python 2.7.2. You can also type which Python, and it will tell you where the binary is actually located. So /user/local/bin/python, and that will kick back some useful data. Switch back over to the slides. I'm gonna put mine inside of documents. So if you're using Sublime or if you're using Atom or some other text editor, in your editor, I want you to make a new file. However you do that, go to File, go to Save As, and I want you to save it in your Documents file, and I want you to call it rpg.py. Okay, switch back over to the Python window. Go down to the next slide here. Grab the Python window. So you should be looking at something like this. I'll zoom in here just real quick. Looks like it's not going to, I'm still getting used to OBS. But the rpg.py is the file that I want to open. I'm going to close the Untitled window because I don't care about that. And this is where we're going to do, this is where I'm going to do everything. Okay? You can also do it in REPL. There's no difference. It's just a matter of where you type at. Okay? The way that our game is going to work, so we're finally at the game design part. If this is what you were excited for, and you've already done all the stuff, or you already know all the stuff I've talked about, we're going to ask the user initially for his or her name, right? For the hero name. And we're going to use that throughout the program. We are going to display some kind of text indicating that there's, you've encountered a terrifying goblin. Has jumped out of the woods. And so this is when the imagination part comes in. So that's going to be less Python and more just how exciting you want to make it. I've had students in class that had whole scripts that were hundreds of lines long, and it makes it really, really fun. Because like I said, imagination is required for something like this. The hero, once we've told them about the encounter, we're going to tell them that the hero has been that has been attacked, we'll give them a prompt asking them what they want to do. The hero will have the option initially to simply fight the goblin. You can do nothing, in which case the goblin's still going to attack you, and then 3 run away. As soon as you have made your decision, or the user's made the decision, we're going to need to evaluate. Well, initially both the hero and the goblin will have a health meter and an attack meter, and after the user has made their decision, both of them will attack. They'll lose health equal to the attacker's power, and then we'll keep going until someone wins, meaning the other guy has died. We'll make it easy for the hero to win, and then if we can reach some of our stretch goals, we can do a few other things. Okay? So let's actually make the game, and we'll actually start writing a little bit of Python. So our first step here is going to be oops, just a moment. Okay, so I'm going to put some comments in here, and in Python, if you want to make a comment, you put a hash symbol or the number sign or the pound symbol, whatever you want to call it. In most text editors, you can also just start typing, and I'm going to put this is a comment. And if you hold the command key down in Mac, I think it's the control key in Windows, although you'll have to test that out for yourself. But if you hold the command key down and hit the slash, it will automatically comment that line out, which is really, really handy. We're gonna try and put lots of comments in here so that it's really obvious what everything is doing. I could give you a code base, and in giving you a code base, we could go a lot farther. But I want this to be the kind of thing where you feel like you've started from scratch and done something cool. Okay? So our task is going to be the hero is going to fight a goblin, at least initially. Maybe we'll have time to add more bad guys. So our program will collect the hero's name. The reason it's turning yellow here as well as pink is because the linter's worried that this doesn't look like Python to the linter, because it's not. We're just writing comments, so those need to be commented out, and then the linter goes back to being happy. My line 4 here, the hero will then have the option of, we'll put in here 1, fighting, or we'll say attacking. 2, stand there, which is never a good idea, but we'll give them the option anyway. And then we'll have another option of running away. So I'll comment these out. All right, and we're going to have to set up a couple variables. We haven't written any hard Python yet. But Python is a dynamic language, so if you've used other languages, it very much depends on where you're coming from. If this is your first language, then this won't mean anything to you. But Python is dynamic when it comes to variables. So that means you don't have to declare the variables or do anything fancy. You just simply use them. You just make the variable. And a variable is just a place to store a something, just to make the rest of your code look a little bit shorter. So you don't have to declare the variable. In JavaScript, you might actually write var name equals Rob. You have to actually put this word var in there in order to let JavaScript know you want to use a variable. In Python, you just simply say name equals Rob, and Python's very happy. Python's also untyped, so if you're coming from something like Java or C#, you'd have to put in there maybe like string name equals Rob, or maybe even string public name, depending on what language you're in. I guess it'd be the other way around. We don't have to do any of that stuff with Python. You don't have to declare anything, and you don't have to specify data type. You simply just put name equals, and then if you want to make it a number, make it a number. If you want to make it a string, make it a string. Okay? So it's both dynamic and untyped, and we need initially to set some variables. So we don't have any code here so far. All we've got is comments. Let's scroll up a little bit here, and we're going to initialize our hero and our goblin's info. So we're going to do hero health equals 10. Again, you don't have to have the semicolons in Python. I always write them because a lot of the languages that I use require them. And we're going to make the hero's power, let's say, 6. Okay? And this is how a variable is written in Python. Depending on your linter, it may be a different color, but the white is what Sublime uses. And this is say later, anytime I want to refer to this, the rest of the program, and just say hero health, that's the same as 10. We're going to change that. That's why we put it inside of a variable. The hero's power is the same way. We can say hero power at any point in the program, and it will be the same as if we had said 6. Okay? We're going to do the same thing for the goblin health, except we're going to make him a little bit weaker. Let's give our goblin a health of 8, and we'll give the goblin a power of, I don't know, 4. Okay? You can make these whatever you want. So exact same thing here. We'll be able to reference these throughout our program and change them if need be. Okay? Now we're going to need a loop, right? Because the Python is a synchronous language, which means it runs top to bottom, left to right. So it starts up here on line 1. Well, it doesn't have anything to do yet. It gets down here to line 11. It runs line 11, and then it runs line 12 and 13, 14, and then it's done, and then there's nothing left to do. So as a synchronous language, if we're going to have a game, we're going to need some way to keep the game going. So we're going to set up a while loop. Okay? And a while loop just means keep doing this over and over and over and over until a condition is met. So while loops will operate like this. We're going to say while hero health is greater than 0. We're going to throw in here a knuckleball. We're going to say and goblin health is greater than 0. And you can put parentheses around the whole thing if that helps. And then we're going to put a colon at the end. This is a while loop in Python. I'm going to comment this out because it doesn't belong there. Okay, so while means as long as this part is true, the hero health is greater than 0, and the goblin health is greater than 0, keep running everything below this colon. Python is an indented language, which means if you want the code to keep running, or rather the code that you want to keep running, has to be one section over. I use tabs. Some people use spaces, but all my stuff is going to be tabbed over 4 spaces. So anything we put in here is going to repeat as long as these are both true. So you need to be really careful here that you don't give Python no way out, otherwise your machine is going to lock up. So while loops can be a little bit dangerous if you don't have a way for one of these two to ever be false. Because if you don't, Python's just going to keep running forever and ever and ever. Okay, so 2 things. 1, indentation matters. And 2, make sure to avoid infinity. So for now, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to say goblin power equals 0. And this right here should be enough to stop our program. It's on line 11, we set the hero health to 10. We set the hero power to 6. We set the goblin health to 8, and we set the goblin power to 4. And down here we have a while loop, and the syntax for a while loop is you have the word while, and then after the word while you say what the condition. While what? Well, while the hero health is greater than 0 and the goblin health is greater than 0. If one of these isn't true because of this magic word and, the while loop will terminate, and we'll put here print out of the while loop. Okay? And that will happen immediately because the first time this while loop runs, goblin power is going to change to 0. So it gets to this line and then goes back up to the top and says, okay, is hero health greater than 0? It is, because it will still be 10. And then it will check to see if the goblin health is greater than 0. It won't be. It will be 0, which is not greater than 0. So it will leave and exit the loop. So I'm going to go over to the terminal. Switch screens here. All right, oops. Move it to the top here. And there we go. And I'm going to run Python rpg.py. And this is how you run it from the command line: is you call the Python binary, and then you give it the file you actually want to run. And my program starts running. It looks like it does, in fact, get trapped. All right, so something's wrong. Go ahead. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, that's my goofy mistake. I have goblin power equals 0. We want to set the goblin health to 0 because that's the condition. This is a fantastic use case. One, I've been doing it for 13 years and still make mistakes all the time. And two, the danger of a while loop is always there. So our condition is checking to see if this and this are both true, and I was never giving it a way out. So it sure didn't work. So thank you for your help. I'm going to run it again, and there we go. So it runs one time, and then it dies. So that's the basics of how a while loop works. And in your loop, you can do things like greater than, you can do less than, you can do greater than or equal to, or you can do less than or equal to, all valid operators in pretty much any programming language. You can put and in here, you can have or in here. Now we definitely don't want to use or, there's definitely not going to be any way to get out. So we're going to stick with and. Oops, I apologize, I forgot. You're not looking at the screen, I have to switch it back in OBS. Sorry. We can have greater than, we can have less than, we can have less than or equal to, we can have greater than or equal to. Alrighty, and now we've already done a little bit of print. If you're using Python 3, you have to have parentheses around this. In Python 2, you don't have to, so make sure to note that. If you would please, inside your while loop, get rid of the goblin health 0, and we'll come back to this. And we're going to start off with a couple print statements. So we're going to say print, you have 10 health, and I think we initially said 6 power. Okay? Now this is a problem because later on in our program, it may very well be that we don't have 10 health or 6 power, depending on how the game progresses. But one of the ways that you can type stuff off in Python is with placeholders. So you can intermingle strings and numbers. And if you're not familiar, there's a big difference between this and this. Those two things are not equal. This is a number to Python, and this is a bunch of English, or the other word for that is a string. Okay? And anytime you intermingle those things, there's always potential for trouble. So Python has a pretty nice built-in way to do this. So we can write English, you have, and we can quick flip over and do %d. And %d means, hey Python, I'll tell you in a little bit what this is going to be. The d itself specifically means this is going to be a digit or a number. You can also use %s, and that means Python's going to expect a string, it's going to expect some text. So for both of our digits here, we're going to change them to %d. We can print off our string. You have %d health and %d power. And then at the end of our line, before the semicolon, we put another % sign, and then we pass it and tell it what the placeholders are. And it's respective. So the first thing that we put in here is going to be hero health. That is going to correspond to this %d. And then we're going to put in here comma hero power, which is going to correspond to this %d. Okay? And I'm gonna drop goblin health back in here and set it back to 0 so that we get out of the program for sure. So it should, the first time through, print off this and this is going to correspond. This is actually this, which we defined up here as 10. And it's going to print off this, which is actually this, which is actually this. So we should get, you have 10 health and 6 power. Goblin health will get set to 0, and we will exit the loop. So let me switch back over to the terminal and run the game. And sure enough, there it is. You have 10 health and 6 power, and then it exits the loop. So this is a really convenient way. Let's put Sublime back up on the screen here. There's a really convenient way to be able to manage your commingling a bunch of numbers with a bunch of text. There's lots of ways to do it. This is the way that I typically will do it. We're going to need to give a little bit more information. Oh goodness, we forgot to start off the whole thing with a note. Let's put up at the top, print. You have encountered goblin. And put a terrifying goblin. Okay, again, imagination is going to be key here. We can add a little bit more later if we have time. So we've managed to print off our initial note. This is how much health you have, and this is how much power you have. And we'll throw in here print the goblin has, and we'll do %d because we don't know how much the goblin's going to have, %d health, and %d power. And then we'll let Python know with another %sign, and then give it our variable. So goblin health along with goblin power. So it should print off, you have 10 health and 6 power, and then should print off the goblin has 8 health and 4 power. It will set the goblin's health to 0, and then it will exit. And I'm going to go ahead and run it, and mine worked fine. I'm not going to switch over the screen so that we can keep moving. Okay, we're going to put in here another note. We're going to say print, what do you want to do? Or let's make it a little more RPG, and we'll say, what action will you take? Okay, and it enters the raw input. And we also don't necessarily like this word you, because while there's nothing wrong with that, our goal was to get the user's name. And so this enters the raw input, or if you're using Python 3, it's just going to be simply input. You're not going to use raw input. So before our print statement, or rather before our while all the way up at the top here, I'm going to create another variable, and I'm going to call this hero name. And this is a way to solicit information from the user. We can ask the user to type some stuff in, and we can make use of it later. So for hero name, I'm going to say, what is your name, brave adventurer? And right below that, well, we'll do it this way. That's fine. We'll say raw input, and then we're going to give it some text. And this is going to create an input box or a dialogue with the user. And it's going to print this off, and it will not move forward until the user enters something. Whatever they happen to enter is going to be stored inside of hero name. This means we have another variable, because up here, these are static, meaning we typed these in, we hard-coded these. Hero name can be anything that the user wants, and we can collect that through raw input. Again, if you're using Python 3, it's just going to be simply the word input. Python 2, which is what I'm using, is going to require raw input. So on line 19 here, instead of saying you have encountered a terrifying goblin, I'm going to do %s, comma, it should be lowercase s. You have encountered a terrifying goblin. And at the end, I'm going to put %, and we're going to throw in here hero name. So this will now print off a string. Whatever you happen to enter, the user happens to enter back here on line 17, is now going to get entered on line 19 along with the rest of the sentence. Line 22, I can change that to a %s. And then I need to make sure at the end of the line to add that here as well. So we'll have hero name, hero health, and hero power on this print statement. All right, and I'll switch back over real quick to my terminal so you can see this in action. So clear out, we'll run it again. What is your name, brave adventurer? I'm going to say Rob the Destroyer. Okay, and there we go. And our Python app says, Rob the Destroyer, you have encountered a terrifying goblin. Rob the Destroyer, you have 10 health and 6 power. The goblin has 8 health and 4 power. What action will you take? And our game ends because the goblin suddenly has 0 health. It's not very fair. We will make it fair in a second. Okay, we're going to keep printing off a little bit more text. This is just some really good practice, even though it's very basic for longer-term programmers getting used to how Python syntax works. We're going to give the user an option of 1. Attack the goblin. And we're going to do print 2. Stand there and get hit. And we'll do print 3. Run like a coward. All right, and we're going to expect the user to pick one of these. And then as a last to make our game a little bit more user-friendly, we're going to print off a caret like that so that when we collect user input on the next line, it'll look a little bit more professional. All right. We're going to say user input. I'm going to have equals raw input, just like we had up above. And I'm not going to pass it anything because we already told them on line 24 what we're asking for. What action do you want to take? If they enter a 1, if they enter a 2, if they enter a 3, it will be stored inside of user input. Okay? So let's hop back over. Well, I guess we don't have anything new. We just have some new text that's printing off. Here, we're going to actually start to make some decisions. We're going to write some conditionals. So this is really similar to the while loop that we had up at the top. I'm going to write an if statement. And in Python, an if statement is simply the keyword if, and you hand it the condition you want to check for. We're going to check to see if user input equals 1. And it does need to be in quotes unless you convert it to a number. Raw input in Python will always come in as a string. If you do that, it's never going to match because there's no way for raw input to ever be an actual number. We have to put quotes around 1. There are definitely ways to do that. There's lots of conversion methods, lots of error handling. That's a little bit out of our scope for the evening. But we're going to check to see if the user input equals 1. And you may not have seen this before. Anytime you have a double equals, so have double equals means I want to compare the left to the right. A single equal signs means I want to make the thing on the left equal the thing on the right. Sorry if I make some spelling errors. I'm doing my best. Okay, we're going to say if the user input equals 1, that means we're going to check to see if user input, which we got back on line 29, is equal to 1. And just like the while loop, we're going to put a colon here, and I'm going to hit enter. Remember, Python is an indented language. You can't put a statement back here because this is not going to run if this if statement is true. It needs to be indented, and we're just going to simply put for now, user entered 1. Okay? We're going to write an else statement here. And in Python, in a lot of languages, you say else if. In Python, it's simply elif. I don't know whose idea that was. I don't particularly care for it. But we're going to say else if the user input equals 2. We'll say print user entered 2. We're going to have an elif the user input equals 3. And we'll say print the user entered 3. And then lastly, looks like I forgot a couple semicolons again. You don't have to have them. I'm just a little bit paranoid about it. And then finally, we'll have an else statement, and we'll say else, because this is our fallback, and we'll go back over this in a second. We'll say print invalid input %s, and we'll throw at the end our placeholder. The %s is actually the user input which we got above. Okay, so we're gonna grab some user input from them, line 29. Get some input, store it in here. We're going to check to see if that is 1. And if it is, we're going to run this line. All right. If it's not, we're going to check to see if it's 2. This line is only going to get run if this isn't true. So this is only going to happen if the first one didn't occur. So if it's 2, then we're going to print off 2. If it's not 1 or 2, we're going to check to see if it's 3. And if it's none of those 3, we don't care what it is. We're just simply going to say you gave us some bogus input. All right, you can go test the program out quick. I'm not going to switch screens, but I'll run it. I'm going to put in Rob, and I'm going to type a 1. And sure enough, I'll switch it over just real quick. Sure enough, that was my output as user entered 1. I'll run it again, and I'll put in here 2. And there we go. We got user entered 2. We run it a third time. I'm going to put in some gibberish. And it says invalid input, and it just spit back what we gave it. Okay? So we are on our way. I'll come back over to our code base here, and we're going to actually make some decisions. So if the user entered 1, we don't want to print off because they already know. We can say print %s makes a daring attack. We'll throw at the end %. We'll say the hero name. All right, so this is going to print off. And then we're going to reduce the goblin's health. So we can do the goblin's health equals the goblin's health minus the hero's power. You can write this a couple different ways, and every programming language is different, but we want to change this variable to be whatever it was minus hero power. So this is going to run first, and whatever it equals is going to overwrite what was there. So the goblin health is 8, and the hero power is 6. So when this line runs, it's going to do 8 minus 6, which is 2, and the goblin health is now 2. Another and far more common way to write this in Python, instead of writing it this way, I'm going to comment that out, and I'm going to put in here goblin health, I'm going to put minus equals hero power. This is going to tell it whatever goblin health is, just subtract the hero power from it, and that's your new goblin health. Okay, so this is the same as saying 2 equals 8 minus 6. That's what we're actually saying, and goblin health is now going to be 2. Okay, we'll go down to the next section here for number 2. We don't want to print that off. Instead, we're going to say print %s stands like a fool looking for an early grave. And we'll throw at the end a %s, % hero name. And then on line 3 here, this is when we decided to run. Okay, we don't want to print off that. We're going to say, I need to mock them somehow because the user decided to run away. We're going to say print %s has run away like a fledgling coward. You will, I'm going to say, at least you will live to fight another day, even if it's yellow. And then we'll need to throw at the end there because I have the %s at the beginning. We'll need to put at the end %hero name. And then this is going to be a little bit of a tricky statement. We're going to say break. Okay, and break in most programming languages, break means leave the loop. I don't care what the condition was. So this is a safe way to exit any loop anytime. If you say break, that means I know we were inside this while loop. Stop. Don't run any more lines. Just leave. Okay? So that's going to happen if the user chooses to run. So let's go take a quick look. And I can comment this out because now we can run away. I know the game's still not quite finished. Let me switch over to my terminal. I'm going to run the program again. And I'm going to say my name is Lancelot. This is Lancelot, you have encountered a terrifying goblin. Lancelot has 10 health and 6 power. The goblin has 8 health and 4 power. What action will you take? We're going to say attack the goblin. And it runs again, and it says Lancelot makes a daring attack. Lancelot have 10 health, so we need to do a little bit of cleanup there. The goblin now has 2 health and 4 power, so this is a big win. Up here, it said the goblin had 8 health and 4 power. Now it says that goblin has 2 health and 4 power. Why? Well, because we made a daring attack. We need to put maybe a little bit more information in there, but it looks like our program is working. You can type Control-C if you just simply want to kill the program and start over. Or you can always run away, and I'll type 3 this time. It says, Rob has run away like a fledgling coward. At least you will live to fight another day, even if it's yellow. And we're back at our command prompt. So I'm going to leave it here. Come back over to the coding window. And it's now the goblin's turn. So let's put a note, one more note in here. I'm going to say makes a daring attack. We'll say print goblin takes %d damage. And then we'll put a % here, and we'll drop in the hero power. So this is going to tell the user the goblin has taken however much damage. Subtract it, and then move on. Okay? So this is going to be if the user enters 1, it will be this code because it's indented underneath this if statement. This code is going to run if the user enters 2. This code is going to run if the user enters 3. and this will run if any other use case happens. Okay, so the goblin, we'll say it's the goblin's turn, and we're going to put in here, assuming he is still alive. We're going to need to check. So we're going to say if the goblin health is greater than 0. I know that's part of our original while loop up here, but if we just kill the goblin, he doesn't get attacked back because he's dead. So we're going to check to see if the goblin still has health. And if he does, we're going to let the user know. We're going to say print. The goblin snarls and lashes out at %s. And then we'll put in here %hero name. Print. The goblin does %d damage. And hopefully you guessed it. The amount of damage is going to be goblin power. All right, so that's going to let the user know. We still need to actually update the hero's health. So what we're going to do, just like we did up above, we're going to set the hero's health, just like we did back up here. The hero's health is going to be, instead of goblin health minus equals the hero power, we're going to do this in reverse. We're going to do the hero health minus equals the goblin power. So minus equals the goblin power. All right, I left off some semicolons there. Just trying to keep us moving. All right, so that should update it. And we can put as a final statement here, if hero health is less than or equal to 0. Actually, let's put this outside of our if statement. Put this all the way outside. So we're gonna check up here to see what the user entered, 1, a 2, a 3, or a nonsense. Then we're gonna check to see if the goblin has health, and if he does, then we let him attack. We're going to check here, and we're going to check to see if the hero has no health. And we're going to say print, you have been defeated by the pathetic goblin. We're going to have an else, rather than an else, we're going to do an elif. The goblin health is less than or equal to 0. Then we're going to print, you have defeated the terrifying, we'll say the terrible goblin. All right, and this is the nuts and bolts of the program, because the while loop will run indefinitely. It will keep going as long as one of these is true. As long as hero health and goblin health is still true. As soon as one of them isn't true, it will stop. What would cause one of them to be true, since we removed our cheat statement here? What would cause one of them to not be true is that if the hero attacks, we reduce the goblin's health, and the goblin will attack assuming he's alive, and the hero health will reduce. So eventually, one of them has to happen. So let's hop back over to the terminal and take a look. I'm going to close down and fire it up again. Python, and we'll go with, we'll do Galahad. Because Galahad, actually I spelled wrong. You've encountered a terrifying goblin. You have 10 health and 6 power, and gives us the goblin's information. We'll attack, and once again we get that same notification that the goblin has taken 6 damage. It says the goblin snarls and lashes out at Galahad. The goblin does 4 damage. Now we only have 6, the hero, because we took damage, and the goblin only has 4 because he took damage. And I'll clear the screen here. And we're going to go with do nothing this time. And it says, we stand like a fool looking for an early grave. The goblin snarls and lashes out. The goblin does 4 damage. And now we have 2 health, and he has 2 health. So this is our last chance to attack the goblin. And it says, Galahad makes a daring attack. The goblin takes 6 damage. You have defeated the terrible goblin. And we have ourselves a tiny little RPG that's driven entirely by your incredible imagination. Now, there's lots and lots and lots and lots of awesome things that you can do from here. All we have right now is just some real simple if-then logic. One of the stretch goals we had, among many, many things that we could do, was we could give the hero some kind of shop, and maybe this creates other options. So back up at the top, I want you to come here, and we're gonna create a new variable, and we're gonna call it as potion. I'm going to set this equal to false, and this is called a Boolean. A Boolean is like a light switch. It's either on or it's off. It's either true or it's false. It's either 1 or it's 0. And so we're going to start off has potion is false, and we're going to set the magic sword also to false. So this is another Boolean. All right, and we're gonna create a function here. And if you haven't made a function before, a function is just a little chunk of code that you can kind of remove from the main part of your program, and you can use and reuse and use and reuse it as often as you want. And in Python, they're actually, put a note here, function equals definition in Python. So if you've used other languages, the word function is actually definition in Python, and we're going to make a function called shop. And just like if statements and while statements, we use a colon to denote that, hey, everything below me that's indented belongs to me. So if someone calls shop, which we're going to do in a little bit, this is the code that will run. And we'll start off here just by simply printing, this is the shop function. Or if you want to be Python-y, you can say definition. And down below, we will, before we do anything, we're going to call the shop function. So to call a function, I'll put in parentheses your definition in Python. Type the def name followed by parentheses. Okay, you can pass arguments into them. Those are other programming concepts we won't get into today. But this is going to get called immediately after we ask the user for their name, and all it will do is simply say, this is the shop function. So let's hop back over to our terminal window, and I'm going to run it again, and it says, what is your name? I'm going to say Rob, and it, boom, there's our code. So our code ran. This is the shop function. I'm going to hit Control-C to get out. I'm going to go back over to our code. And we're going to change this up. We're going to, instead of just saying this is the shop, let's give them a little bit more information. We'll say, actually, we're going to type in here still shopping, and we're going to set this to true. This is another Boolean that we're going to use in a second. And we're inside of a function, and this is again common to programming, but if you're inside of a function and you want to use something outside of the function, depending on the language, sometimes you have to say, hey, I know that I'm in shop. I don't want to use my own variable. I want to use my parents' variable, or I want to use the main program variable. We have has potion and has magic sword up here. We want to use those even though we're inside of the function. So we're going to say global has potion. We're also going to say global has magic sword. And this means inside of shop, if we're talking about has potion, we're talking about this one. And if we say has magic sword, we're talking about this one as well. Okay? We're going to put a while loop again, and we're going to say while still shopping. And this is the same as saying while still shopping equals true. Okay? You can write it this way because if you simply say while shopping, that's assumed that you're asking if it's true. It is true. We said it was here. I'm going to print off. You have entered the shop. Print. What do you want to buy? All right, we're going to kind of like we did down below. We're going to have a 1, and we're going to say a health potion. And we're going to have a print to, say, a magic sword. Print 3, leave the shop. And print 4, flex your muscles. And then we'll print off our caret, and then we'll ask for some raw input. I'm going to call it user input again. There's no problem in using the same variable over and over. Python will just override it if it needs to, and we will ask for some input. So whatever the user puts in here is just like we did down below. We're going to check to see what they enter. And we're going to make a decision accordingly. So we're going to say if user input equals 1, then we're going to change has potion to be true. All right, we're going to say elif user input equals 2, then we're going to change has magic sword to be true. We're going to have an elif user input equals 3. We're going to say still shopping equals false. That's going to be an assignment. And we're going to have elif user input equals 4. I'm going to print off something obnoxious like the shopkeeper is disgusted by your arrogance and throws you out. And then we'll change still shopping in that case to false as well. Uh-huh. Correct. Yep. I don't know why. Everybody seems to do a little bit different. Elif equals else if in almost every other language. We can put here PHP, Java, JavaScript. Elif equals else if in Ruby. Yep, so that's a good question. We're going to put here else print, because they put that means they printed something nonsense. So the user entered nonsense, meaning they didn't not 1 through 4. So we're going to say print. Sorry, my fingers keep getting off. Print, the shopkeeper grumbles at your nonsense. And that is the end of our shop. So what's going to happen here is shop, which is our function, is going to get called right after we collect their hero name. So we're going to get their hero name. And then they're going to go to the shop. And the shop is going to start off with this variable still shopping is true. So our while loop is going to be good to go. We're going to make sure we let Python know, hey, that hash potion and has magic sword I'm talking about are the ones I've got up here. They're not local variables. And then this loop is going to run. We're going to keep saying while still shopping is true, and it is. I'm going to print off this text. We're going to get some information from them. If they put in 1, then they get a magic potion. If they put in 2, we're going to change this boolean to true. If they enter 3, still shopping is going to be false. And the next time through the loop, we will exit because this won't be true anymore. The same thing is true for 4, along with they get kind of a snide message. Okay? So down below, just so we're almost done here, so I want to skip down to the bottom here. We're going to add another statement in our main section here. Here, after 3, I'm going to say if has potion, then and only then are we going to print off option 4, use potion. So this, oops, sorry, I misspelled print. If the user has potion, and they don't by default because up above we set it to false, but if they go to the shop and they buy it, then it will be true right here. Down below, if they do have potion, then we'll print off use potion. So down below we can put in another elif, say user input equals 4. And let's put a double check in here so that they don't try and get clever and guess something else. And has potion, then we will print you use the health potion and gain 20 health. Now we need to actually make it happen because printing it to the user is not enough. We need to actually tell Python the hero health plus or equals 20. So whatever the hero health was, we're going to add 20 to it. Okay, and this will set us up. Let's go back up here and under number 1, instead of always subtracting from the goblin health to goblin power, let's do a quick check here. And we'll do if has magic sword. Instead of doing goblin health minus hero power, we're going to do hero power plus, let's do another 5 damage, because we're going to do an extra 5 damage because we have the magic sword. Else, we're going to just do the regular damage. Okay, so instead of %b here as just hero power, we're going to need to put an if statement up here as well. And this isn't the most efficient way to do it, I know, but it's just, again, it's good practice. We'll say if the hero has the magic sword, then we'll print off the goblin takes %d damage and another %d from the magic sword. And we'll throw at the end here Let's just put it in. We don't need the %d. We'll just put 5. And we can have an else, and we'll indent that. So if the hero has the magic sword, then we get to do both. Otherwise, we're going to print off just the hero power. And this is where Python actually updates the variables. If the hero has the magic sword, we do the hero power plus 5 damage. Otherwise, we simply do the hero power. So let's take one last look, and then we can take other questions if anybody's got them. And let's run Python against RPG. What is your name, brave traveler? This time we'll go with Napoleon. Actually, let's just do Rich. Now, what do you want to buy? We entered the shop. This is where we started. Let's go ahead and buy the health potion. Now, we're still here because it's still shopping is still true. Let's this time buy the magic sword. And then this time, let's flex our muscles. And it says the shopkeeper is disgusted by your arrogance and throws you out. It says, Rich, you have encountered a terrifying goblin. You have 10 health and 6 power, and the goblin has its health. Now this time, instead of just 1, 2, and 3, we have used potion. Why? Because we bought it at the shop. So let's stand there and get hit. And sure enough, it says we stand like a fool. We're down to 6 health and 6 power, 8 health and 4 power. Let's stand there like an idiot again. We're down to 2 health and 6 power. This time, let's use our potion. So line 4, we'll use our potion. And it says you use the health potion and gain 20 health. So we went from having 2 health to 22 health. The goblin does 4 damage. Now we're down to 18. Let's go ahead and attack the goblin. And it says the goblin takes 6 damage and another 5 from the magic sword. You have defeated the terrible goblin. We can make one last tiny update in order to make your game a tiny bit more fair. After you use the potion on line, where's it at? If the user input equals 4, not only does the hero health go up, we also need to do has potion and set it back to false. That way you don't get to use it more than once. Okay? Now some great ideas. There's a random module that if you're interested, you can come back up to the top, and I can put code in a little bit later. We can import the random module, and then you can start doing random damage instead of always doing 10 and 6 and 8 and so on. That can kind of randomize your game. You can add in other options, so the user can take, instead maybe make a daring attack and you take double damage, and you do double damage. You can add other elements up to the shop. You can add an amount of gold and give the user a certain amount of gold here at the beginning. So you can have hero gold equals 10. And then, depending on how much gold they have, you can put some if statements and else statements and prevent them from buying things. So there's no end to the fun that you can have with these. And it's all, at least in the beginning, just lots of good if statements, else statements, and print statements. And you can make yourselves an awesome game and get the basics of Python down. So I'll be more than happy to take any questions if anybody's got specific stuff. Otherwise, we really appreciate you joining us tonight. Okay. Yes, so the question was, is hero power declared up above? The answer is yes and no. Python is a dynamic language, so you don't actually have to declare it. You can just set it anywhere. So there's no like var or integer or public int or anything like that. It's just simply hero health wherever you want to put it. And that's the very, very first line of my code, is I define these variables, hero health, the hero power, the goblin's corresponding stuff, and then we added these booleans in just a little bit ago. So this is where hero health is. If you don't have that, and I'm just going to comment it out for a second, I'm going to come back over to the terminal real quick. And if I run the program now, I'm going to get an error as soon as it hits that line. I'm going to flex my muscles and leave the shop. And it will say name hero health is not defined. This is the error that you're going to get, a name error in Python if you don't have a valid variable that you try and use later. So yep, that needs to be declared up at the top. Anything else? All right, hey, on behalf of DigitalCrafts and Liz and the rest of our team, hopefully you've learned and enjoyed. If you got questions, want to see the code base or want to know how to do particular things, if you got hung up, at any particular part, sure shoot us a note at hello@DigitalCrafts. Really appreciate everybody. Thanks very much, Twitch. And we will see you in the next cast. Take care.